What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Questions You Never Thought to Ask, the Whitewater Kayaking Podcast. My name is Seth Ashworth, and this is a podcast I host every 2 weeks, all about the world of whitewater kayaking. This week's podcast is kindly sponsored by the people who support me on Patreon.com. Patreon.com is a crowdfunding platform that allows people to chip in a couple of bucks every month or as frequently as you want to help me keep this podcast going. You can hop in at any time and get out of it at any time. And people who support me on Patreon get to listen to the podcast usually a week or sometimes 2 weeks before it comes out on whatever podcast app you're listening to this right now. So if you want to hear early access to these podcasts, go check it out, patreon.com/Seth Ashworth. All the details are on there, or send me a message via any of the social media platforms. Okay, that's enough of that. Enjoy this podcast, and if you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. Peace. Welcome back, episode 15 of Questions You Never Thought to Ask. This week, I've got a very special podcast, which I'm trying to call Unleashed Preview, featuring kayaking's biggest boy band, Brent Orton, Adrian Matten, Caleb Grady, and Dane Jackson. They're on the line with me today. Hello, boys.
Yo, how's it going, Seth?
How's it going?
Hello, welcome to Questions You Never Thought to Ask. This week, I want to talk to you guys about an upcoming event in Canada very soon, which you guys organize, which is called Unleashed. Two reasons, really. One, it's coming up fairly soon, and reason two is it's a nice segue away from my last podcast with Aoife, where I talked about organizing a kayaking event. You guys are actually, organizing one right now. I try and describe it to people kind of like the X Games of kayaking. But can you guys describe in your own words what is Unleashed?
I mean, mate, pure and simple. That a lot of things that are happening kayaking at the upper end of the sport aren't showcased in competitions. You know, there's a few comps out there like Norfolk Championships and things like that that do an incredible job. But by and large, like the absolute top tier of kayaking is just not showcased in competition. And we thought that was a crying shame. And so we set up our own event. And the whole goal of the event really is to celebrate the enormous, unique, special whitewater of Quebec, and to celebrate each discipline of kayaking, you know, freestyle kayaking and racing, and to combine 4 events together, 2 freestyle events, 2 races, and try and find the best kayaker, the best all-round kayaker for that year.
Okay, and this is Unleashed number 3, Unleashed number 2 in Quebec. Can you tell us about previous events, what they've looked like, and what we can expect to see with this event?
So we were able to pull off the inaugural Unleashed in Quebec in 2017. We had a short window to take a extremely similar format to Uganda in 2018 before the Asimba Dam was completed. And we're just going to roll forward into our third Unleashed here, learning from our previous events. We're going to try to bring athletes a more convenient, more streamlined experience, as Brent mentioned, as we search for who is the best all-around kayaker in the world. With this event coming up, we've widened our event window, so we unfortunately had to cancel our event last year. But with this extended event window coming to our athletes this year, we have a larger range of time for Mother Nature to give us the best rivers, the best features to challenge our athletes on this year.
All right, let's talk about last year for a second. There was a building buzz, if you're a kayaker and you're on Instagram, around Unleashed 2019. And then all of a sudden, all the buzz went away. Give us a rundown, the 411, and what happened there.
I mean, do you want to go?
Let's get Adrian in. Get Adrian in.
Yeah. Basically, what happened is we were preparing for our second edition in Quebec, Unleashed 2018, just after Uganda, working really hard. And everything came together pretty well. We had an epic lineup of riders and all that. But the sun just wouldn't arrive. Spring wouldn't arrive. We got to Quebec, I think 10 days before our original start for the event date, and everything was still frozen. The Ottawa River was literally a giant ice block. And we were looking at forecasts, trying our best to make sure we were able to hold off an event at adequate whitewater features for the event. But it just wouldn't come together. There was so much ice, so much snow. It was big risks. It would have been big risks for the athletes and spectators and safety as well, because all the banks were still covered in ice and all that. So we tried our best, but unfortunately,
for the sake of keeping it professional, for the sake of keeping the standards as high as we want them to be, we had to call the event off. And it was a bummer, of course, but in the end of the day, lots of lessons learned. We were still able to go kayak with our friends after. And yeah, so that was a bit of a bust, unfortunately, but we're looking forward for this year's edition and looking at forecasts and all that. Seems like we are right on track for an epic Unleashed 2019.
Something Caleb just mentioned when we were talking a second ago was there's an event window. Can you tell us what an event window is? Like, what does that date range mean for people who aren't familiar?
So that format is inspired by big wave events, and the thing is that you can't predict the weather or the flow rate of the river exactly. We have rough guesses based on previous years, as the whole stakeout crew that follows the big wave season out there does, but you never truly know. And ultimately, our event window to run the event is not that many days. So we created a wider window for it to happen. And so we've got basically almost 3 weeks now in which at any point when the river levels are at the right level for us to hold this event, to showcase what is possible when you get the world's best kayakers on the biggest white water you can find, then we'll hit go and then the event will run. Whereas like last year, because we had dates set in stone and we had, staff and volunteers coming in that couldn't take any time off, we just weren't able to move and be flexible. And if we could have done that, we would have been able to hold last year's event. But because of a bunch of moving parts that we weren't able to shift and we weren't counting on having to shift, we couldn't hold the event. But this year it should all be in place. It's like we've got the time window, everyone's on the same schedule, everyone knows what's up, and we're just gonna sit tight and wait for those water levels to be prime, and then the event will start.
And for people following on at home, what are the dates on that time window?
So we got it lined up for you guys this year. Our athletes are all coming together on the Friday, April 26th, and we have them on call all the way through until the finish of the event on May 19th. If we are able to start on the 26th, and once we do start the event, we'll roll through in our 9, 10, 11-day format, typically where we go one stage, have a rest day and a travel day, and then straight into the next stage. Once the event starts, we're going to limit that free time. In no way, shape, or form are we planning on starting on the 26th and finishing on the 19th and drawing the event out over 3 weeks. But we do want to have that opportunity to delay our start by a day or a couple days or a whole week in order to get our athletes on the best whitewater that we can. But once we start, just like Bren mentioned, it's going to be green light go into our normal format of 9, 10, 11 days.
Great. So speaking of athletes, who's all a part of this? Like obviously I know, but not everyone who's following along at home has heard about Unleashed. Can you give us a rundown on like who's all going to be there? Who's on the athlete roster?
Yeah, this year's athlete lineup, again, really high quality. Lots of people from all over the world. I'm personally stoked. More and more top kayakers from Europe coming out. So I'm just going to read you out a quick list here. You ready?
I'm ready.
So we have Dane Jackson, Adrian Lefknecht, Quinton Kennedy, Joel Kowalski, Josh Collins, Brent Orton, Benny Ma, Pierce Husser, Andy Brunner, Hayden Voorhees, Marianne Sether, Luke Pomeroy, Edward Markridge, Arthur Paulus, Katie Kowalski, Kim Fontan-Masso, Jacob Hanul, Garrett Madlock, Leif Anderson, Kid Frankie, Nathalie Anderson, Abby McAdams, Tom Dunphy, Michael Ferraro, Adrian Matern, Seth Ashworth, Pat Keller, Andrew Oxley, Caleb Grady, Sam Duff, and Erin Savage. So as you can see, really, really good amount of people who are top kayakers, exceedingly good in both freestyle and whitewater and the racing and all that. So yeah, we're stoked how it came together. We were a little bit scared that after last year we couldn't have the event, that there might be like less interest or something, but that was definitely not the case. We once again can say we will have some epic races and some epic competition coming up with these people being our athletes out there.
And how do you guys come to the conclusion of who's going to get an invite for this event? Because it is like an invitational event. There is like a process of submitting application forms and then interpreting those. Like what goes into a successful, what's like the recipe for an Unleashed competitor?
Well, the ultimate recipe for an Unleashed competitor is, as we mentioned, we want to have someone who is strong in both fields of the kayaking scene, right? We want to have someone who's good in freestyle, but is also good in maneuvering and handling big white water. And in the application process, we ask a few things to get an idea of who that person is, because we are working with extreme conditions. We need to make sure our athletes are not sketchy or on the fence, So we ask for obviously their recent race finishes and all that, but we also make sure their level of kayaking is high enough by asking for highlight videos. We reach out to people or if we don't know them. Luckily, the kayaking community is not that big, so in between the four of us, we usually know the person pretty good and get a rough idea on whether we think he's capable to compete in Unleashed or not. Saying that, it's always hard to like tell someone off, but it's just, as I mentioned, like, it's stakeout, it's cold, like swims are not good. It is quite dangerous out there, so we just need to make sure people are like top tier athletes in order to compete in Unleashed.
Yeah, this year's roster I noticed was a mix of like heavy hitting old dogs like Benny Ma and a bunch of like younger kids who like Andy Bruner, who I hadn't ever heard of before. But when I started looking into him, he looks like pretty legit. How many people did you turn away from that? What, like approximately how many entries were there total?
Man, I can't even remember now because it was a while back. But anyone got any guesses on a rough number?
The email.
120, 140, something like that.
120, 140 applicants, I think. But it's a unique event. There's not that many kayakers in the world that are capable of coming and competing, and I feel like most people that apply know that, like they like, they trust in their abilities and their confidence of being able to compete at the event, and people that aren't of that caliber sort of stay away. It works out. Everyone knows what's up. Like, the event is legit. It's hard. It's tiring. You're gonna spend 10 days competing hard. You're gonna be wet and cold for long days on the river. You're gonna be scared most days. It's a gnarly event, dude. As you know, because you've been to them.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to be a part of all the events, which is kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. It kind of spread the love and spread the message of this one, because the thing I've always enjoyed most about it, like especially in the first Unleash in Canada here, was that you never really knew what you were doing until that morning, until the day of, and it was like, who can show up and be their best self with almost no preparation, right? Like that slalom race we did on Basse Cachée like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever,
Yeah.
like. That was the antithesis of like, hey, if you're like actually legit, you're going to be able to show up and throw down. And if you've like been fronting this whole time, then you're going to have a bad time. And there was like no middle ground. It was like, show up and be your best self. And if that's good enough, then you're going to be like placing, or, show up and be terrified and not put on the water that day.
Yeah, totally, mate. 100%. And like, overcoming that daily uncertainty of like, what's happening, where are we going, like, who am I going to have to race against today? What am I racing on? What are we going to freestyle on? Is there a piece of white water out here that's going to make me swim or have a bad time? It's like, not everyone can deal with that. But the people that can, rise to the occasion, and that's when we get those really special moments where people are just ready to rock up and show their best, which, it's just another element to the competition that you don't really get anywhere else.
I think that's honestly, for me, I think it's like the hardest thing to explain to people, but it's one of the best things about the event. It's like, Sick Finds, it was a really sick event, but it was the same course. The course didn't change very much. You could practice it like you can practice it thousands of times. You could have thousands of laps on that last like waterfall. But for Unleash, it's like, okay, like you maybe are going to get one practice lap, and then it's game time, and you got to be on it. You got to be ready. And I think it's hard to communicate how important and how difficult that can be with such like limited preparation, but like how exciting that makes the event from like the spectator standpoint.
Yeah, mate, no doubt. A kayaker's ability to adapt to each location in each competition, that's huge. That's like a big deciding factor in the overall results. Also, just like, like we turn a lot of people away just because they don't have the experience on this sort of whitewater. Like we've seen it happen in previous events. People rock up and they're just wide-eyed at the bottom of race courses because they're like, I cannot believe how big that whitewater is. It is on another level out there.
Yeah, I think unless you've been here, it's difficult to convey, even in video and in pictures, like how big some of Canada's, like Eastern Canada's spring whitewater is. It's like it doesn't matter how impressive the pictures are, how the video. It's like when you're in there and you're in the middle, um, it's just next level for me, and I love it. I just fucking love it. Every year I come back, I cannot wait for spring to start. All right, then, boys. Last question, $1 million question. Why should people be paying attention to this event?
That is a big question, bro. It is realistically, I think it is the most impressive feats of kayaking in the most harsh conditions, in a setting that allows us to push people to actually knock Dane off the pedestal of winning 2 events in a row. So if you can tune in this year, try and follow along with us as we figure out who the best kayaker in the world is, and see if people can chip away at and improve their game and come to compete 4 stages in a row, and kind of tackle that whitewater of Quebec. And I think Bren did a good job of mentioning it, where you kind of, once you get there, you can't really talk the talk anymore. You got to walk the walk, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, man. I'm purely as well, like the event media coming out of this, it will be sick. You know, like I'm pretty happy with previous videos that we've made, but the media game with everyone has stepped up so many levels since the previous events that I think this year's series of videos with daily wrap-ups is going to be bonkers. You know, you're going to see epic kayaking, big wipeouts, everything you would want to see from a kayaking video. I think it's going to be epic.
Every day, back to back.
I'm excited about it for sure. How can people follow the event? What's the social media? Give everybody the 411. Where can they follow it at?
Yeah. So we will use our social media outlets, which is one unleashed.event on Instagram. On Facebook, you will find us also as Unleashed Event. Moreover, we will share videos on our We Are Sent Instagram and Facebook account. Within our personals, obviously, we will encourage all the athletes to use their own platforms to reach out and spread the word. But if you just want to tag along the event and have it quick and easy, just go to Instagram, unleashed.event. That's where we'll publish all event happenings and shenanigans.
Great. And then is there anything else you guys want to sign off on before we let people get back to their daily routine?
Well, thanks for tuning in. Stoked to make this one happen. It's going to be a big one, and excited to see where this one is going to go for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Seth. Thanks for taking the time, bro.
Yeah, mate, good talking to you. Keep us updated on that spring melt. We're watching it like hawks at the moment, but excited to see what happens with the river levels over the next few weeks.
Well, as of time of recording here, there is still a mountain of snow outside the window. So
that's good. That
watch this space. Okay, this has been Questions You Never Thought to Ask, episode 15. Peace.